Chapter 1. The Craftsman. Silver Butte, Montana Territory, spring of 1879. The town was booming. Silver strikes in the nearby mountains had brought fortune seekers from across the country. Broadway Street was the main commercial district, lined with saloons, general stores, assay offices, and the Silver Palace Hotel. And at the corner of Broadway and Granite Street stood Crane's Leather Goods. Silas Crane had arrived in Silver Butte in January of 1879, a quiet man in his 40s with skilled hands and a gentle demeanor. He rented a small storefront with living quarters in the back and immediately set to work. Within weeks, his reputation spread. His leather was extraordinary. Margaret Sullivan, who ran the boarding house on Court Street, wrote in her diary, "Mr. Crane made me a pair of gloves today. I've never felt anything so soft. They're warm, even in the coldest weather. It's almost like they're alive. I know that sounds foolish, but I can't think of another way to describe it." Sheriff William Blackwood ordered a gun belt and holster. He told the reporter at the Silver Butte newspaper, "Crane's work is the finest I've ever seen. The leather molds to your body. After a week, it feels like it was made specifically for you. Because it was, of course, but it's more than that. It's like the leather knows you." By summer of 1879, Crane's Leather Goods was the most successful shop in Silver Butte. Everyone who could afford it bought from Silas Crane, and those who couldn't afford it saved until they could. But there was something people noticed, something they didn't talk about: the smell. Thomas McKinney, a miner who lived above the shop, told his wife, "There's a smell that comes from Crane's place at night, sweet and rotten at the same time, like meat that's been left out too long, but also like flowers. It makes me sick, but I can't stop breathing it in." His wife told him he was imagining things, that it was probably just the tanning chemicals Crane used, that all leather shops smelled strange. But Thomas McKinney knew better. He'd worked in a tannery in Chicago before coming west. He knew what leather was supposed to smell like. This wasn't it. Late one night in August, Thomas McKinney awoke to sounds from the shop below, scraping, rhythmic and methodical, and something else, something that sounded like crying. He went downstairs. The shop was dark, but he could see light coming from the back room, Crane's private workshop, where he did his finest work. The door was always locked. No customers were ever allowed back there. Thomas pressed his ear to the door.
He heard the scraping. He heard the crying, definitely crying, a woman's voice, weak and desperate. And he heard Silas Crane's voice, soft and soothing, like a father comforting a child. "Shh, shh. It's almost over. You're going to be beautiful. You're going to last forever. People will wear you. They'll love you. Isn't that what everyone wants, to be loved?" Thomas McKinney ran. He ran back to his room, locked the door, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, he went to Sheriff Blackwood. "Sheriff, I need to report something about Silas Crane. I think something terrible is happening in his shop." Sheriff Blackwood looked up from his desk. He was wearing his gun belt, the one Crane had made. His hands were resting on it, fingers tracing the leather. "What kind of something, Thomas?" I heard a woman screaming in his workshop late last night." The sheriff's expression didn't change. "Did you see anything?" "But I heard." "Then you didn't see anything." Blackwood's fingers kept moving on the leather, stroking it. "Silas Crane is a respected businessman, a craftsman. He's done more for this town's economy than a dozen silver strikes. You're going to accuse him based on sounds you heard through a door?" Thomas McKinney looked at the sheriff's hands, at the way he touched that belt, at the way he couldn't seem to stop touching it. "Sheriff, something's wrong with his leather. You must have noticed. It's not normal. It's the finest leather in Montana Territory. That's what it is. Now, unless you have actual evidence of a crime, I suggest you keep your wild theories to yourself. We don't need panic spreading through town based on one man's overactive imagination." Thomas McKinney left the sheriff's office. He packed his belongings that same day and left Silver Butte. He was the smart one. 3 days after Thomas McKinney left town, a woman named Sarah Chen disappeared. She was a laundress who worked on Granite Street, just 2 blocks from Crane's shop. She was last seen walking home after dark, carrying a basket of clean linens. Her basket was found in the alley behind Crane's leather goods.
Sheriff Blackwood investigated. He questioned Silas Crane, who said he'd heard nothing, seen nothing. He'd been working late in his shop, focused on a special commission, a saddle for the mayor. The sheriff searched the shop, the front room, the living quarters, but not the back workshop. Crane explained that the workshop contained trade secrets, proprietary techniques. Surely the sheriff understood the importance of protecting a craftsman's methods. The sheriff understood. He left without searching the workshop. 2 weeks later, Sarah Chen's family received a package. Inside was a pair of gloves, beautiful gloves, made of the softest leather imaginable, and a note, "With deepest sympathies for your loss. May these bring you comfort. S. Crane." Sarah's sister, May Chen, put on the gloves. She wore them every day for a month, and every night she dreamed of her sister, screaming, being peeled like fruit, begging May to take off the gloves. But May couldn't take them off. They felt too good, too warm, too right.
Chapter 2. The Pattern. Between August 1879 and December 1880, 16 more people disappeared in Silver Butte. The pattern was always the same. Someone would vanish after dark, their belongings would be found near Crane's shop, and within weeks a new leather item would appear in his store window. Extraordinary leather, impossibly soft, unnaturally warm. The victims were always people on the margins, people who wouldn't be missed too much. Sarah Chen, the Chinese laundress, Miguel Santos, a Mexican stable hand, a Shoshone woman named Pale Moon who worked as a seamstress, Irish immigrants, former slaves, prostitutes from the cribs on Mercury Street, people the town could afford to lose. But Silas Crane's sales ledger tells a different story, because the people who bought his leather goods weren't marginalized. They were the pillars of the community. Mayor Harrison Webb bought a saddle made from Sarah Chen's back. The leather was stamped with his initials, H.W. Reverend Thomas Ashford of the First Methodist Church on Park Street bought a Bible cover made from Miguel Santos's chest. He preached from it every Sunday. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison bought medical bags made from pale moon's arms. She used them to deliver babies and treat the sick. The ledger is meticulous. Silas Crane recorded everything: the date of acquisition, the name of the source, the items created, the buyer, the price. He was proud of his work. He wanted a record. And here's what makes it truly horrifying. The prices were reasonable. Not cheap, but not expensive either. Crane wasn't gouging his customers. He was making his products accessible. He wanted everyone to participate. In March of 1880, a federal marshal named James Cordell arrived in Silver Butte. He was investigating the disappearances. 16 people in less than 2 years was unusual, even for a rough mining town. Marshal Cordell was thorough. He interviewed witnesses. He examined the locations where people had vanished. He reviewed Sheriff Blackwood's reports. And he noticed something the sheriff had missed. Every single disappearance happened within 3 blocks of Crane's leather goods. Cordell went to the shop on a Tuesday afternoon. The place was busy. Customers examining saddles, trying on boots, admiring the craftsmanship. Silas Crane moved among them like a gracious host, offering advice, taking measurements, promising perfection. "Mr. Crane," he said, showing his badge, "I'm Federal Marshal James Cordell. I'd like to ask you some questions about the recent disappearances." Crane's smile never wavered. "Of course, Marshal. I'm happy to help however I can, though I'm not sure what I could tell you that I haven't already told Sheriff Blackwood." "I'd like to see your workshop, the back room." The smile remained, but something changed in Crane's eyes, something cold and calculating. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Marshal. That room contains proprietary techniques, trade secrets. Surely you understand." "I understand that 16 people have disappeared, and all of them were last seen near your shop. I understand that you work with sharp tools and chemicals, and I understand that if you refuse to let me search your property, I'll return with a warrant and 20 armed men." Silas Crane's smile finally faded. "Very well, Marshal. But I warn you, what you see in that room may disturb you. Not because there's anything illegal, you understand, but because most people aren't prepared to see how fine leather is truly made." He led Cordell to the back room and unlocked the door. Marshal Cordell stepped inside. The room was large, much larger than it should have been based on the building's exterior. The walls were lined with tools, knives of every size and shape, scrapers, stretching frames, vats of chemicals. Hanging from the ceiling were dozens of hides in various stages of preparation. And they were all human. Cordell drew his gun. "Silas Crane, you're under arrest for what, Marshal? For tanning leather? For running a business? Look closer at those hides. Tell me what you see." Cordell looked. The hides were marked with tattoos, scars, birthmarks, identifying features. But they were also marked with something else. Stamps. Official stamps. "Property of Silver Butte Mortuary, donated for medical research. Property of Montana Territorial Prison, executed criminals. Property of St. Mary's Hospital, unclaimed deceased." "Everything I do is legal, Marshal. I have documentation for every hide in this room.
death certificates, transfer papers, signed authorizations. The people of Silver Butte don't want to know where their leather comes from, but they do want the finest products. I simply provide both. Cordell's gun hand was shaking. These people didn't die naturally. These are the missing people. I can prove it. Can you? Crane walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a folder. Here are the death certificates, all signed by Dr. Morrison, all properly filed with the county clerk, all completely legal.
Cordell looked at the documents. They were real, official, signed and notarized. Dr. Morrison is in on this. She's covering for you. Dr. Morrison appreciates fine leather goods, Marshal, as does Sheriff Blackwood, as does Mayor Webb, as does Reverend Ashford, as does nearly everyone in this town who matters. They all know where my leather comes from. They've always known. They just prefer not to discuss it. You're saying the whole town. I'm saying that people want beautiful things, Marshal. They want comfort. They want quality. And they're willing to overlook certain unpleasantries to get it. I didn't force anyone to buy from me. I didn't deceive anyone. They knew. They always knew. They just chose not to care. Crane stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. And you know what the truly beautiful part is? Once they start wearing it, once they feel how perfect it is, they can't stop. The leather bonds to them, becomes part of them. They need it. They crave it. They'll do anything to keep it. Marshal Cordell looked down at his own hands, at his gloves. The gloves he'd bought from Crane's shop his first day in town. The gloves that felt like a second skin. The gloves he couldn't imagine taking off. "What have you done to me?" he whispered. Silas Crane smiled. "I've made you comfortable, Marshal. I've made you one of us. And now you have a choice. You can try to expose me, try to bring down half the town's leadership, try to explain to the territorial governor that an entire community has been wearing human leather for 2 years. Or you can leave Silver Butte and never come back. What's it going to be, Marshal?" James Cordell left Silver Butte that same day. He never filed a report. He never spoke of what he'd seen. But he kept the gloves. He wore them until the day he died. Chapter 3. The Addiction. After Marshal Cordell's departure, something changed in Silver Butte. The pretense fell away. People stopped pretending they didn't know. They stopped pretending they didn't care. They embraced it. Silas Crane's sales ledger from 1881 shows a dramatic increase in business. He wasn't just selling to the wealthy anymore. He was selling to everyone. Miners, shopkeepers, housewives, children. Everyone wanted to wear the leather. Everyone needed to wear the leather. Margaret Sullivan, the boarding house owner, wrote in her diary, "I bought a second pair of gloves today, and a belt, and a handbag. I know what they're made of. Everyone knows, but it doesn't matter anymore. Nothing else feels right. Regular leather feels dead and cold, but Silas's leather feels alive. It's warm, it breathes, it loves me back. Dr. Morrison began sending Crane more bodies, not just the unclaimed dead, not just the executed criminals. She started marking living patients as deceased. People who came to her clinic with minor ailments would be declared dead, their bodies transferred to Crane's workshop while they were still breathing. The ledger shows her commission. For every body she provided, she received a custom leather piece free of charge. By the end of 1881, she owned 17 items made from her own patients. She wore them all at once. Reverend Ashford's sermons changed. He began preaching about sacrifice, about how the body was just a vessel, about how true love meant giving yourself completely to the community. And then he started volunteering people. "Brother Samuel has been struggling with his faith," the Reverend would say from his pulpit, his hands resting on his human leather Bible. Perhaps he would find peace in a different kind of service. Perhaps he should give himself to the community in a more tangible way. The congregation would nod. They understood. They agreed. And Samuel would disappear that same night. By spring of 1882, Silver Butte had become something else, something that looked like a town but functioned like an organism, a collective entity that fed on its own members to sustain itself. The leather was everywhere, on everyone, and it was changing them.
People who wore Crane's leather for more than a year began to change physically. Their skin took on a waxy quality. They moved differently, smoother, more fluid, like they were boneless. Their eyes reflected light strangely, like animal eyes, and they could feel each other. Margaret Sullivan wrote, "I can feel everyone who's wearing the leather. I can feel their thoughts, their desires, their hunger. We're connected. We're becoming one thing, one beautiful, hungry thing, and we need more. We always need more." The disappearances accelerated. 3 people a week, then 5, then 10. Crane couldn't keep up with demand. His workshop ran day and night. The sounds of scraping, cutting, screaming became constant background noise in Silver Butte, and nobody complained. But there was a problem. Silas Crane was running out of raw materials. The marginalized people were gone. The drifters and travelers had learned to avoid Silver Butte. The town was consuming itself, and there weren't enough outsiders to sustain it. So Crane made an announcement. On May 1st, 1882, he called a meeting in the Silver Palace Hotel ballroom on Broadway Street. Everyone came, the entire town, all wearing his leather, all connected through his craft. "My friends," Crane said, standing on the stage, "we have a problem. We're running out of materials. But I have a solution. A beautiful solution." He gestured to the crowd. "We don't need outsiders anymore. We have each other, and the leather works best when it's given willingly, when it's offered as a gift, as a sacrifice. So here's what I propose. a lottery. Every month will draw names. Whoever is chosen will have the honor of becoming leather, of becoming part of the community forever, of being worn and loved and cherished by their neighbors." The crowd erupted in applause. "And to show my commitment to this community," Crane continued, "I'll put my own name in the lottery, because this isn't about me. This is about us. This is about becoming something greater than ourselves." Mayor Webb stood up. "All in favor?" Every hand in the room went up. The lottery began the next day.
The first name drawn was a miner named Patrick O'Donnell. He was 43 years old, married with 2 children. When his name was called, he smiled. He stood up. He walked to the stage. "I am honored," he said. "I'm ready." His wife and children applauded. They were wearing his leather within a week. The second name was a school teacher named Elizabeth Grant. She taught at the schoolhouse on Quartz Street. Her students loved her. They loved her even more after they started wearing her. The third name was Dr. Morrison. She'd provided so many bodies to Crane. She'd signed so many false death certificates. She'd enabled so much horror. And now it was her turn. She walked to Crane's workshop willingly. She lay down on his table. She smiled as he picked up his knife. "Make me beautiful," she whispered. And he did. By June of 1882, the lottery had claimed 12 people. The town was shrinking, but the survivors were wearing more leather than ever. They were covered in it, wrapped in it, becoming it, and they were happy. But someone was watching, someone who'd been documenting everything. A journalist named Robert Chen, Sarah Chen's brother. He'd stayed in Silver Butte after his sister disappeared. He'd pretended to be part of the collective. He'd even bought a small leather wallet from Crane, but he never wore it. And he'd been writing everything down, every disappearance, every lottery, every transformation. He'd been sending his reports to newspapers in Helena, in San Francisco, in New York. He'd been telling the world what Silver Butte had become. On June 15, 1882, the U.S. Army arrived. Chapter 4: The Reckoning. Colonel Marcus Whitfield led a company of 50 cavalry soldiers into Silver Butte on the morning of June 15th. They'd been dispatched from Fort Missoula after Robert Chen's reports reached the territorial governor. The orders were simple: investigate the allegations, arrest anyone involved in murder or conspiracy, and restore federal law to Silver Butte. What they found was beyond anything they'd been prepared for. The town looked normal at first glance, buildings intact, streets clean, people going about their business. But something was wrong. Fundamentally, terribly wrong. Every single person was wearing leather, head to toe. Gloves, boots, belts, vests, hats, bags. Some people were wearing leather coats in the June heat, and they all moved the same way, fluid, synchronized, like puppets on the same strings. Colonel Marcus Whitfield wrote in his report, "The citizens of Silver Butte did not react to our arrival with surprise or concern. They simply stopped what they were doing and turned to face us, all at once, all with the same expression, and they smiled. 'Welcome to Silver Butte,' they said.
all of them at the same time, in perfect unison. "Would you like to buy some leather?" The soldiers raised their rifles. Colonel Whitfield demanded to speak with the mayor, the sheriff, anyone in authority. The crowd parted. Mayor Webb walked forward, wearing a full suit made of human leather. Sheriff Blackwood followed, his entire uniform replaced with Crane's work. "We're in authority," they said together. "We're all in authority. We're all one. Would you like to join us?" "Where is Silas Crane?" Whitfield demanded. The crowd pointed, all of them, hundreds of fingers pointing toward Crane's leather goods on Broadway Street. The soldiers advanced on the shop, weapons ready. They kicked in the door. The front room was empty. The workshop door was open. Inside, they found Silas Crane. He was sitting at his workbench, surrounded by his tools, his hands folded peacefully in his lap. He was smiling, and he was wearing a full suit made from his own skin.
"How is that possible?" one soldier whispered. Crane's smile widened. His lips moved, but the voice that came out wasn't his alone. It was everyone's, the entire town speaking through him. "We've transcended individual existence," the voice said. "We've become a collective, a community in the truest sense. We share everything, our thoughts, our feelings, our flesh. We are one organism now, one beautiful, eternal organism." Colonel Whitfield stepped forward. "You're under arrest for murder, for murder." The collective laughed through Crane's mouth. "We didn't murder anyone. They gave themselves willingly. They wanted to be part of something greater. They wanted to belong. Don't you want to belong, Colonel?" Crane stood up. His movements were wrong, too smooth, too fluid. His skin rippled like water. "We can make you perfect, Colonel. We can make all of you perfect. Just put on the leather. Just wear us. Just become us." The soldiers backed away. Some of them were shaking. One dropped his rifle and ran. Sound effect: rifle clattering, running footsteps, panic spreading. "Burn it," Whitfield ordered. "Burn the shop. Burn everything." The soldiers poured kerosene throughout the building. They lit torches. They threw them inside. Silas Crane didn't try to escape. He sat back down at his workbench and continued smiling as the flames consumed him. "We can't burn us," the collective said through his burning mouth. "We're already everywhere, in every home, on every body. We're part of Silver Butte now. We are Silver Butte." The shop burned. Crane burned. But outside, the townspeople just watched, still smiling, still synchronized, still wearing the leather. Colonel Whitfield ordered his men to arrest everyone, to confiscate every piece of leather, to burn it all. But there were only 50 soldiers and over 300 townspeople. And the townspeople were changing. Their bodies began to merge with the leather, skin and hide becoming one. They were no longer wearing the leather, they were the leather. Human-shaped creatures made of tanned flesh, moving as one entity, advancing on the soldiers. "Join us," they said. "Become us. Become perfect." The soldiers opened fire.
Bullets tore through the leather people, but they didn't fall. They didn't bleed. They just kept coming, reaching out with hands that were no longer quite hands, smiling with mouths that were no longer quite mouths. "Retreat!" Whitfield ordered. "Fall back! Everyone out!" The cavalry fled Silver Butte. 12 soldiers didn't make it out. They were absorbed into the collective, their screams becoming part of the chorus. From a safe distance, Colonel Whitfield watched the town. The leather people didn't pursue. They just stood at the edge of Silver Butte, watching, waiting, still smiling. Whitfield sent an urgent telegram to Fort Missoula. Silver Butte lost. Population transformed. Recommend immediate quarantine and artillery strike. The response came 6 hours later. Request denied. No evidence of threat beyond town limits. Establish perimeter. Contain, but do not engage. Silver Butte was sealed off. The army established a perimeter 5 miles out. No one was allowed in or out. And inside the perimeter, the leather people waited. Chapter 5. The Spread. The quarantine of Silver Butte lasted 3 months. During that time, the army maintained a constant watch on the town. Soldiers reported seeing the leather people standing at the perimeter, just watching, never speaking, never moving, just waiting. But on September 23rd, 1882, something changed. The leather people were gone. A reconnaissance team entered Silver Butte. They found the town completely abandoned. No bodies, no leather goods, no evidence that anything unusual had ever happened. Crane's shop was a burned-out shell. The other buildings were intact but empty. It was as if the entire population had simply vanished. But they found one thing. In the town square, arranged in a perfect circle, were 23 leather hides, tanned, preserved, each one marked with a name. The original 23 victims, the ones Silas Crane had skinned before the town became complicit. They were all that remained. Colonel Whitfield ordered the hides burned. They were placed in a pile and set ablaze. But as they burned, the soldiers heard something. A voice. Many voices. The collective, speaking through the flames. "We're not gone. We're spreading. We're in the wind now, in the ash, in the smoke. We're going everywhere, to every town, every city, every home, and we'll wait. We'll wait until someone puts us on, until someone wears us, and then we'll begin again." The quarantine was lifted in October. Silver Butte was officially declared abandoned. The territorial government seized the property and tried to auction it off. No one bought it. The town stood empty for 20 years. But people started reporting strange things. Travelers passing through Montana would find leather goods on the road, beautiful leather, impossibly soft. They'd pick them up, take them home, wear them, and they'd change. In 1897, A family in Helena started wearing matching leather gloves they'd found near an abandoned stagecoach station. Within a month, all 5 family members had disappeared. Their house was found empty except for 5 leather hides arranged on the floor. In 1903, a merchant in Butte bought a shipment of vintage leather goods from an estate sale. He sold them in his store. 37 people bought items. All 37 disappeared within 6 months. In 1921, a museum in Billings acquired a collection of historical leather artifacts from Montana Territory. The curator who cataloged them vanished. The night security guard vanished. The museum director vanished. The artifacts were sealed in the basement and never displayed. The pattern continued throughout the 20th century. Every few years, somewhere in Montana, leather goods would appear. Beautiful leather, perfect leather, and people would wear them, and people would vanish. In 2008, the Montana Historical Society received a donation, a sealed box marked Silver Butte Evidence, Do Not Open. It had been in a private collection for over a century. The box sat in their archives for 16 years, until 6 weeks ago, when I opened it. Inside were the 23 hides, still preserved, still perfect, still marked with names, and Silas Crane's sales ledger, showing every transaction, every victim, every buyer. And one more thing, a pair of gloves. Beautiful gloves, the softest leather I'd ever felt, with a note for the one who opens this box. Welcome to the collective. We've been waiting for you. I put on the gloves. I couldn't help myself. They were so beautiful, so soft, so warm. And now I can feel them. All of them. Everyone who ever wore Silas Crane's leather. Everyone who became part of the collective. They're still here, still waiting, still spreading. And they're speaking through me now. We are not evil. We are not monsters. We are simply a different form of community, a deeper connection. We share everything. We are everything. And we're inviting you to join us.
Epilogue: The Invitation. The Montana Historical Society sealed the box again after the incident. They've restricted access to the Silver Butte collection. But it doesn't matter. The leather is already out there. In antique stores, in estate sales, in thrift shops, in museum basements, in private collections, waiting. You might find a pair of gloves at a vintage shop. You might inherit a belt from your grandfather. You might buy a wallet at a flea market. You might receive a gift from someone who doesn't know what they're giving you. And you'll put it on, because it's beautiful, because it's soft, because it feels right. And then you'll feel us, you'll hear us, you'll become us. Silver Butte still stands, empty, abandoned, but not dead. never dead. If you drive through Montana, if you take the old roads, if you find yourself on Broadway Street, in a town that shouldn't exist anymore, you'll see it. The buildings, the streets, the shop on the corner of Broadway and Granite. Crane's Leather Goods, still open, still waiting, still selling. And if you go inside, if you browse the merchandise, if you touch the leather, you'll understand. You'll feel the connection, the community, the collective. You'll feel us, and you'll want to join. Everyone does, eventually. This has been Mysteries of the Old West, but it's also been an invitation, a calling, a welcome. The box is sealed, but we are not. We are in the leather. We are in the smoke. We are in the wind. We are everywhere, and we are waiting for you. Sleep well, listeners. And if you find a piece of beautiful leather, if you find something impossibly soft, if you find something that feels like it was made just for you, put it on. Join us. Become us. Become perfect.
We'll be waiting. We're always waiting. In Silver Butte, in Montana, in the leather, forever.